Joining me now is Alex Lawson, Executive Director of Social Security Works. Alex, it's not a great day for people who love Social Security.
Yeah, I'd say it's not a great few weeks here, but I will also say that the people who love Social Security is the vast majority of the American people. This is a beloved program, so really it's a bad couple of weeks for the American people.
I noticed that there was one Republican who voted with the Democrats not to accept this budget, and I was a little bit surprised. One Republican who'd been very public in saying they weren't going to vote for it if there were cuts to, Medicare and Medicaid, Rob Brejnahan, who he's a Republican who represents a swing state in Pennsylvania. And I also heard sound clips where one Republican earlier yesterday was saying, well, there's 5 of us who are not voting for this. I don't know why Mike Johnson seems to be in such a rush to bring the bill to the floor. But apparently, I don't know if deals were struck, but certainly pressure was brought to bear. And Rob Brejnahan fell into line voting for this new budget. So since the Republicans aren't going to save us, what are we looking at in this new budget? What are we looking at as far as Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security so far? Not that they can't do more damage later, Alex, because we know that's possible, but what are we looking at right now?
So, yeah, it's really complicated on purpose, right? They make it esoteric so that only the high priest and priestesses of Washington, D.C. know what's going on. Luckily, there's a few of us with tribunes of the people also keeping an eye on it. So I don't want to make it too complicated. But what passed yesterday is called the resolution. It actually didn't have specifics, and it's not the actual reconciliation bill. It's not the particulars. What it does is it instructs the committees to put those particulars down. So think of it as the starting gun. There's a large distance they have to cover from yesterday when every single Republican voted to cut $890 billion from Medicaid, thereby destroying the program, throwing millions of people out or stealing their health care, closing nursing homes across this country. Medicaid serves seniors, children, people with disabilities. The lone Republican who voted against the resolution, which again is like a starting gun and a map. It's not the actual budget that comes later. The lone Republican who voted against it, he voted against it because it didn't cut enough. So he didn't vote against it because he was worried. No, all of the Republicans who are in tight districts, there's 17 of them are so-called frontliners, and they all voted for this. And just one little example, like take Iowa's 1st district, Representative Miller-Meeks. She won by 799 votes. 799 votes. If the resolution, the way it's set up, actually makes it across the finish line, 66,000 people in her district lose their health care. 799 votes is what she has. So you can just expect all 17 of them, they're going to lose their jobs. But the thing is, they're cowards. They're more scared of King Elon Musk and his puppet President Donald Trump than they are of their constituents. That's why they fell in line. It's as simple as that. Cowardice and greed.
Well, that's what I see. But I'm surprised if you represent a district that isn't solidly red, how do you go home after voting for things that are going to hurt the very people you purport to represent? I know that Elon Musk has a lot of money and has personally threatened the political careers of more than one official. But it's sort of like a lose-lose for them. Disagree with Elon, and he's going to make sure you're primaried. Don't disagree with Elon, and your constituents aren't going to vote for you. I mean, I guess they're still more worried about him than they're worried about us.
And it is what it is. They're more worried about their donors than the people. But you know what? The game's not over. Like, the race has still got many legs here. The next thing that happens is these instructions go to committee. For example, Energy and Commerce is the committee that actually has to specify the $890 billion in Medicaid cuts. Now, that same representative I talked about earlier from Iowa's 1st District, Representative Miller-Meeks, she serves on Energy and Commerce, and you can bet your bottom dollar that Social Security Works, my organization, and our partners on the ground in Iowa are going to be making a ruckus. We've got a billboard truck that we're sending imminently to her district. We're going to go to every single Social Security office, nursing home in her district to let people know that she's voting to steal 66,000 people's health care in her district. She's voting to close the 15 nursing homes in her district. And we feel like we can pressure her and make sure that she's hearing more from her constituents than from Donald Trump and Elon Musk, maybe even enough to stop this thing in her committee. So that's the next thing that we're going to fight. All of those on the committees, it'll have to come back to the floor. We've got multiple chances to slow this thing down, to make it less bad, but you can't take away from the fact that every single Republican yesterday voted to destroy Medicaid. The one who voted against it voted because it wasn't destroying it enough.
That is just horrifying. It is absolutely horrifying. I'm speaking to Alex Lawson, Executive Director of Social Security Works. We are going to take a real quick break. We're going to be back with more after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
And I'm joined by Alex Lawson, who is with a group that is working to protect Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Alex is Executive Director of Social Security Works. And I correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, but isn't Scott Perry, Republican Scott Perry in the House, one of the people who you think might be a pressure point?
Yes, he won by 11,000 votes. He would rip 59,000. He'd rip health care away from 59,000 of his constituents. So we are letting his constituents know right now.
And how do you get that message out?
So we have a variety of tactics. Sort of tried and true one. We run billboard trucks through their districts. We go to Medicaid offices, Social Security offices, their district offices. We go to nursing homes, places where seniors, people with disabilities are. We also partner with our allies on the ground. There's been protests in Scott Perry's district, in Miller-Meeks districts, in the districts of these Republicans. They're too big cowards to actually have town halls, so we have to actually go there and try to create some news on the ground. And so partnering with our allies, getting people into the street, driving phone calls from constituents into their offices, and otherwise just making sure that the press is telling the right story. Because one of the things, if you watched yesterday, the news, the way the Republicans got this across the finish line for this first starter gun is they spent all day lying about that it wouldn't cut Medicaid, right? And the press just they didn't push back. They go on TV and they're like, you show me where it says Medicaid in the bill. And the press just let it go. They're like, oh, I guess that's right. You can point in the bill. You can point in the resolution. You're like right there where it says find $890 billion in cuts to Medicaid, instructions to the Energy and Commerce Committee. You can look at their menu of options. They wrote it down. They wrote down what they're going to do, but the press just let them get away with this sort of, bravado, like it doesn't cut Medicaid. Well, guess what?
Do you think that's just because of the people covering this didn't have good information? Were they just lazy? Have we come to a time when nobody wants to challenge anybody lest they be iced out, like the Associated Press has been iced out of the White House?
Little column A, B, and C is what I think, Joan. And I think that you have a lot of really amazing, brave reporters, but you also have some who are much more interested in sweetening their beat than they are in telling the truth. You just saw today the owner of the Washington Post just changed and said from now on we're going to only be pushing right-wing talking points in our opinion section. The opinion editor resigned over that. So it's also who owns the corporate media, right? Like whose story are they telling? And when they're owned by who owns Twitter, right? Why did Elon Musk spend all of those billions to buy Twitter? It's to flood the zone with their propaganda. But here's the hopeful part. The next phase, they have to actually write down the actual cuts. We will be able to calculate the exact amount of people in writing exactly of what these proposed cuts are. And at that point, the press hopefully will, when they say, where is it written down? They'll just be like, right there. It's written down right there. But in the meantime, we're going to take the message directly to the people. And I'll say local press has been doing a really good job. And those the Republicans in those frontline districts are terrified. There's all those news stories coming down to the vote about them being like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. And they were massaged into voting for it with promises that, the Senate would make it better or don't worry about it because, we're going to change it as it goes. But the truth is that as long as Wall Street continues to demand its blood sacrifice of cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, just turn on the financial press and you'll see it every day. If they give this $4.5 trillion tax handout, which is what it's all about, tax handout to Elon Musk and his billionaire buddies, they have to make massive cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, or the bond rates will skyrocket and rich people will lose out. So they demand the cuts, and in order to give those tax handouts to billionaires.
Yep. You mentioned before that when you go to a place to make sure that the populace knows what their legislators are doing, that you partner with allies. Who are some of the allies that you work with?
There's a ton of local organizations. A lot of them are parts of different networks. Indivisible, for example, has chapters all over the country, and they're made up of some of the greatest people that I've met. We ourselves have seniors councils in almost every state in the country. It's different in each state, but the most important thing for people who want to fight back is to understand that you're not alone. It's to get organized. You have to get organized. Find the people in your neighborhood, in your community, who are fighting back and stand shoulder to shoulder with them. You can start at socialsecurityworks.org. That's my organization, but also I really recommend Indivisible. They have an enormous amount of chapters doing great work across the country, and there's a host of other organizations. But the key is we find our strength in solidarity, and they want us to feel isolated. They want us to feel like there's nothing we can do to fight back. But in fact, we have all of the power. They've got money, but we've got people.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel we have been getting enough from Democrats who are in elected office?
No. I think that you've seen some leadership. I feel like Senator Bernie Sanders' anti-oligarchy tour, he's going to districts that, are very marginal for the Republicans, and he has thousands and thousands of people turn out in those districts. You see Robert Garcia, AOC, there's Greg Casar, Pramila Jayapal. There's a handful, Mark Pocan. There's a handful of people who are doing amazing work. But generally, the truth is that politicians are lagging indicators. They're not going to show the leadership. There is no cavalry coming. And although that might be terrifying in a sort of way, it should be empowering as well, because we are the cavalry. The people is where the leadership, the bravery, and the power comes from. Once we raise our voices together, when we have millions of people raising our voices together, then the politicians will find their bravery and they'll stand with us, and we will be happy when that happens. But for the moment, the opposition is coming from the grassroots, and we just have to keep turning the volume and intensity up and just standing shoulder to shoulder, raising our voices, reminding the Republicans, these are bullies that we're talking to, reminding them that all power is with the people. And fascism is stopped by millions of normal, everyday people saying no. No, I'm not going to let you steal my Social Security, my Medicare, my Medicaid that my family relies on, so that you can give these giant tax handouts to billionaires to buy another golden yacht or whatever it is that they do with their money. That's what I count on.
The Social Security is not a handout. It's something we've paid into over our working life, with the expectation that that money is going to be returned to us. Social Security, if not Medicare and Medicaid, but at least Social Security was always the third rail of politics. You mess with it at your peril. I think we could add Medicare I think we could put Medicare down as a third rail, that you mess with it at your peril. Why is it that the current Republican leadership seems to think that this time's different? This time they can get away with it. People are just ill-informed. They're too stupid. They know Fox Cable's going to be on their side. I don't understand how they think they can vote against these programs and continue on in office. Got any insight there?
It's because they're very, very stupid. Not in a, IQ way. They're very stupid in understanding the American people way. They've got, the donor class down. They know what they need to do to get on Fox News or One American News or whatever, but they don't understand the ferocity with which the American people will absolutely stand up and fight back. But the one thing I disagree with the setup is it's Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. That is the third rail. People understand Medicaid is the largest provider of long-term care in this country, that 62% of people in nursing homes are reliant on Medicaid. There's millions and millions, tens of millions of families, because it provides health care to 70 million people, tens of millions of families who realize that without Medicaid, they'd be forced to foot the bill for nursing home care, which averages $100,000 a year, or their loved one is coming home with dementia, right? And they're supposed to just figure out how to care for them at home. They can't. They can't. And there's been a cultural change to understand that just like Medicare, just like Social Security, Medicaid is ours. It's part of a larger system that we pay into. It's ours. It's not politicians in Washington, D.C. Who can take it away. And so I think that the raw stupidity of the people in Washington, D.C., the Republican politicians, who think that they can get away with destroying these absolutely beloved programs. Medicaid, 85% of everyone loves Medicaid and do not want to see a single penny cut from Medicaid. Over 50% say that the federal government doesn't spend enough right now on Medicaid. So the thing is that what the money and, what Wall Street and the people who dance to their tune have is this enormous propaganda machine. And mainly what it does is it tells people, don't believe your eyes and ears. We promise that we're not going to do this as they're doing it. But the thing is, once you actually do something to someone, right, once you fired 2,400 veterans from the VA, once people actually realize that this is real, this is happening, they can't put the toothpaste back into the tube. They can't just keep lying they will try, but their lies will wear off and the enormous backlash will build.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. You know, a while back, Ezra Levin, who with his wife put out the very first Indivisible guide when Trump was elected the first time, he said something that I actually had forgotten. He said that when Trump was elected the first time, it was not the Democratic leadership who led the charge in opposition and trying to thwart him. It was the grassroots that only after thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people went to their legislators' offices and marched and took to the streets that the Democratic lawmakers sort of woke up to this idea of resistance. Do you think that will happen this time as well?
That is what always happens. Bravery comes from the people. Once we've got the people arrayed and marching in the street, the politicians will gladly join us as we go, but we can't wait for anyone to lead us. We are going to have to lead ourselves. But luckily, millions and millions and millions of people are willing to stand up and fight back against this enormous attack on democracy and things that we hold dear. Just today, the Trump administration said that they're going to fire 50% of the people who work in the Social Security Administration. Just a couple weeks ago, they said they were going to close every Social Security field office. You tell me what the reaction to that is going to be all around the country, People right now say it's too hard to get information that they need about their Social Security. What about when there's no one working there anymore? What about when there's no more Social Security office? Elon Musk says they're going to replace it with AI. Have you ever tried to call Google or Facebook or one of these Silicon Valley companies? That's what they want for Social Security. They want to just rip it away from you and make it impossible for you to fight back. Well, what we're going to do is stop them from doing that. So I'm incredibly certain that the American people will stand up, will fight back, and will win. And we just have to understand solidarity grows through adversity and just bank on that. Don't let the bullies grind us down.
Alex Lawson, Executive Director of Social Security Works. Thank you so much, Alex. We will continue this conversation over the next year, 2 years, until this ship rights itself. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.